Hi everyone, thank you for joining us. Arlie Ingalls here. Today we're going to talk about the new adaptation of Little House on the Prairie from Netflix, and we're going to talk about episode 4. And I'm joined by industry expert Brett Cullum. So let's get started. Episode 4.
Episode 4 is called Life Let Us Cherish. And it's centering on a deadly malaria outbreak that threatens really almost all of Independence, Kansas at this
point. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah, because we noticed at the end of episode 3, Mary collapsed with a high fever.
Yeah.
And we pick up immediately right after that. I mean, it's just kind of like one of those classic streaming cliffhangers right into it. So
Yeah. And the opening scene of the episode 4, though, has both Mary and Carolyn sick. But Charles and Laura at the beginning of the episode were fine or appeared to be okay.
Yeah. Doesn't last long, though.
It doesn't. So, yeah, Charles becomes sick, and then Laura kind of takes over everything and does all the work. And at one point, you see her putting the fence rope down to keep the gate closed. And then the next thing you know, the horses are gone.
Yeah, a lot of stuff going on. And then, of course, the doctor, George Tan, is trying to figure out a way to get quinine, which back then was the only really effective treatment that they had for high fevers and things like that. But he finds out that the town's shipment has actually been delayed. So supply chain problems here on the prairie. And of course, really tough to get to. And he discovers that the town's wealthiest woman, Gemma James, has privately stockpiled an entire supply. And of course, he pleads with her to share it, even offering that he would replace every dose after he gets his shipment. And of course,
she denies it. And then he offers to pay for it as well, and she denies that as well. She wants to keep it to keep her own family safe. So you kind of get it. They're out in the prairie, middle of nowhere, and the supply is short, but unwilling to share it, which kind of starts to paint her in a really bad light.
Well, I think it brings up a lot of the things about community and what is our responsibility to our community, and if we have that, and be sharing with neighbors during a pandemic or an illness or whatever. I think that's really one of the big questions and it kind of gives you that. It kind of reminded me a little bit of maybe something we've been through recently, and
a little bit.
Yeah, so it was an interesting way to look at a problem that I wouldn't say is modern, but it has persisted through community over the history of time. So.
Right. Yeah, so as the episode goes on, so eventually Charles gets sick, and then Laura does as well. She tries to go out for help. Well, one of the things that they mention is that you appear to be recovering and feeling better, and the fever kind of breaks, but then it comes back with a vengeance. And it was at that point, Laura decided she needed to go for help. And that's where she realized the horses were gone. So she sets out on foot, and one of the things that I thought was kind of clever and interesting is it's separated from the books. They all go into these dream sequences where they resolve some storylines that were there but not really explained very well.
Yeah, there was a part where Charles really gets a revelation about his younger brother George, where you get the idea that his father, Lansford Whitting, blames Charles for George's passing in the actual Civil War. So we get that through a dream sequence, which is kind of nice to see that because it's not something that they necessarily are going to address through a normal narrative. And then, of course, we have Caroline's dream, where she is confronting her sister about the move.
Right, and unfortunately I've lost my notes. So so she confronts her sister, and it really is her kind of confronting her own decision on whether or not she should be where she is, or should she take her sister up on her offer to travel back to the east. Yeah,
and that's a big thing for Caroline in this whole part of the season. Then Laura's dream is actually about her grandmother. And we get a little cameo.
Yeah.
And the Green Gables shows up. So there you are.
Yes.
An actress that played that character plays Laura Ingalls.
So you get to see two people that you haven't seen before. Lansford Whitting, which is Charles' father, and Laura Colby Ingalls, which is Charles' mother.
Mm-hmm.
So the grandparents make an appearance. Interesting enough, because we've got photos of the actual family.
We do.
So to see them on screen and to know what they actually look like in real life, it was a little bit of a surprise. And so anyway, you'll have to look for that as well.
Of course, everything gets bad, pretty dire.
Yes.
But we do have a turning point, obviously, where
We do.
we find out that somebody has quinine.
And the most unlikely source.
Yes.
Which is what you kind of would expect.
It is Lacey O'Byrne, who runs kind of the gambling establishment that John Edwards frequents. And John had actually used some gambling winnings to purchase a new supply. So
Right.
John Edwards kind of saves the day, although not present in the...
Right, he's not
thing.
present
Yeah.
in this episode. So one of the funniest things, or one of the funniest lines that I took away from this series, so when Lacey is introduced to the Ingalls family, Laura made a comment, and she said, "I've never seen a lady wearing pants before." And Lacey's character said, "Well, most people wouldn't call me a lady."
There you
So I
are.
thought that kind of gives you an idea of the character that she's playing in the series. Very, very lovable, and comes to the rescue of everybody.
Now, I think what makes this sort of unique to this particular adaptation is that they are really playing this for a medical drama. It's really a sense that you probably didn't get in the books. It's definitely there.
Right, it is
We
there.
definitely have it. They do get sick in the books, but it's one of those things where it's not the most pleasant thing in the world, but it doesn't seem life-threatening.
Right, and in the books, of course, keep in mind it's being told by someone who's remembering their childhood.
Yeah.
So as a child, you wouldn't have the same memories you would as an adult. And I'm finding more and more this series kind of makes that leap from a childhood stories to more adult storylines. And this is an example of that.
But what is interesting is Laura does mention quinine in the book.
She does.
But it's just not a huge thing. It's not this issue where they're having to find it. There's a scarcity of it. Everyone's having to make sacrifices and all of that. So there's nothing that kind of takes place like that. But again, I mean, definitely elevating the kind of pastoral quality of the books into something more a wilderness struggle, fight against the elements,
Right.
that kind of a thing.
Yeah. They're expanding on those storylines, which I think is a good thing. Those are stories that certainly would have taken place during that time period. I'm glad they're adding them and adding those kind of details, making the characters more full and fully realized with backstories and have a little more depth. And not that I'm being critical of the Michael Landon series, not at all. I think that was a great series for its time. Both of them did a really good job of telling wholesome stories, and this one is certainly following that path as well.
But a lot of people complain that there was no Nellie Olson or Mrs. Olson in this first season, which is true to the books. Nellie did not really come until later in the book series.
Right.
So we do have this kind of replacement character for her. We've got Gemma James. She kind of seems to be a stand-in for that kind of selfishness or kind of social inequality, if you will, somebody that's a little bit more well-off.
Right.
And not making the greatest moral choices when she's pressured,
True.
Yeah, and she's definitely original to the Netflix series. You're never going to see that in the books. Jenna is not mentioned at all.
Right. And I really like what they're doing with the Mr. Edwards character. Even though he wasn't in this episode, there was certainly a sense of his presence in the overall story.
Mm-hmm. And of course, there is a focus that expands beyond just Laura to the whole town, which is kind of nice. And
it is.
You got a lot of that.
Yeah. So what else do we want to say about episode 4?
Well, it's a great episode, but it is introduced kind of as a medical thriller, kind of a thing where they're trying to get the cure. And in the books, yes, they got sick, but they kind of got over it, and it just kind of life went on. And in both episodes, both in the Netflix series and in the books, quinine is the accepted treatment.
Yep.
I think that it's very true that settlers really did fear malaria and disease, especially when doctors weren't necessarily always close by and you didn't have treatments like
And medicine, like you do, like you would in a city or a larger, more populated area.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that do stay true to the books, but definitely a little bit more kind of going outside, would you say, on this one?
For sure, yes.
Yeah. So,
in a good way, in a really good way.
Yeah. I think that it's one of the breaks, because I think the 1 through 3 actually was a little bit more sticking to the books. This one really sticks to a theme, but not maybe the exact plot, if that makes sense.
Yeah, nope, and I would totally agree.
Yeah.
So that is episode 4. Anything
Yep.
else to say about that?
No, I think we covered episode 4. That's the malaria outbreak.
Yeah, episode 4, and we're going to record episode 5 in just a few minutes.